Well, good morning and welcome back to day 2, which promises to be full of action-packed content. I would like to welcome everyone back, and hopefully for those that were able to attend the reception last night, you had a wonderful time at that event and saw a lot of very interesting meteorites in that fantastic collection. Today is all about the breakout sessions. Today is the real meat and potatoes for our two-way communication, and so we're going to start off this morning with Marguerite Broadwell, who's going to give a comprehensive recap of yesterday and also set the tone for today's breakout sessions. But before we do that, I would like to provide one reminder, and that is right after today's sessions, which will end at 4:30, we are going to have two roundtables, one for internationals and one for our interagency or federal agency members, and those will be immediately following today's formal agenda. Those are a little bit smaller breakout session. The international roundtable will be in the Virginia room here at the hotel, and the federal agencies roundtable will be in the Rhode Island room. But again, we'll remind you of that towards the end. And so without further ado, Marguerite Broadwell.
Good morning. It's nice to be with you this morning, and hope everyone had a good time last night. I think it seemed to go over pretty well. And as a NASA employee now for 20 years, I can't think of a better way to have celebrated my birthday than with a great group of colleagues. So thank you very much. Thank you. Same time next year. And I'd also like to thank so many people that have helped make this hopefully the success that I think it is. And these same people I'm actually thanking because they're going to need to help me with the digesting of all the information that y'all are putting in. But so I'd like to thank, we've thanked the topic leads. You've met them here. They've been up to see the public. But there are some others that are key, and that's the facilitators in these breakout groups. They've been working mighty hard and prepared a lot to try to make this work effectively for you. And also the content capturers of your information. But I'd like to identify the facilitators and thank them for their great work. Mike Connolly, Paul Gilbert, George Sarver, Mike Wargo, Chris Moore, Eileen Stansberry, John Connolly, Mike Gernhardt, Bill Ayler, Pete Gerritsen, Kathy Larini, Brian Wilcox, Victoria Friedenson, and Scott Pace. What a great group. Thank you. And I'll have to tell you that with all the great input that you provided yesterday, and I'll show you some of the statistics on that, and all of the input was not even captured in here with the statistics, and of course some of it overlaps, but you can tell that you've come up with a lot of important objectives for human missions to a NEO, and thank you very much. And so this next part that I'm going to tell you that will serve as your launching point for today's breakout sessions that are focusing on, we have two precursor breakout sessions, one on technologies and capabilities, one on concept of operations, one on planetary defense, one on synergies, and one on policy and participatory exploration. And so with so much information yesterday on the objectives and the activities and the different characteristics of NEOs that you would like to pursue to achieve those objectives, how do you go through this many objectives and try to get some focus to then go into these sessions? So I'd like to thank my little Tiger team who worked till really, I should say early this morning, helping me go through these and come out with something that you can use as a framework for today. And that's Kent Joosten, Tom Jones, Rob Ambrose, and Paul Abel. So thank you very much to them. And in conversations last night with folks, I think it became blurred a little bit between what's the difference in an objective and what's the activity. If we say we want to characterize something, well, we want it characterized, so that's an objective, but you actually have to characterize it, so that's an activity. So there's a little blurred place here, but I think these objectives characterize and will serve as a good starting point for your breakout sessions today. Deep space capabilities. There is quite a few capabilities that need to be demonstrated in deep space, and that's radiation shielding and hazards, closed loop life support system, power, in situ resource utilization, microgravity effects, autonomous operations, degraded, we don't want to practice degraded communications. You will have a time lapse in your communications. We want to figure out how we operate well with that. And in-flight training. We also want to define the diversity of characteristics of the NEO population. There was a lot of talk yesterday that we really don't even know, but we can't even hardly touch the surface. Probably shouldn't use that term, but of what the pool of NEOs are out there. So this is really getting to understand that and characterize the physical and chemical properties of NEOs, and basically the understanding our solar system better, the formulation of it, understanding the mass, shape, density, porosity, spin, strength, mineralogy, and composition of NEOs, and to mitigate, identify, and characterize the threats to Earth. And you can see that there's some relationship in these. By understanding the field of NEOs out there and characterizing their properties, it will help us to characterize the threats to Earth. So these are the activities that we need to look at, and these will help when the capabilities and technologies teams look at these activities, they'll appreciate what they might need, as well as the concept of operations breakout team. We need sample handling and curation. We need to test the hardware systems. We need to deploy the scientific instruments for ongoing operations, and test potential deflection techniques, and characterize the physical and chemical properties of NEOs. So this is your homework for today. Use this, go ye forth, do great things. That's all I have.
Before we dive into the breakout sessions today, I'd like to have Bruce Betts is going to come up, and he's going to give you a brief overview of our public participation in the exploration of NEOs, better known as participatory exploration, PE. Bruce.
As Marguerite mentioned, we want to figure out how to simulate degraded communication, so that's why I've been invited to speak to you today. Talking about that thing, public participation. What's interesting about human mission to a NEO is, on the one hand, you've got something that's so very exciting, so very cool, like we've been hearing about here, that certainly by the time you have humans going out to the NEO, public's going to be super excited. It's going to be great. It's a first. It's something totally new. We're going to have the views that Tom Jones talked about and simulated some of the Earth receding, of astronauts working in a totally new environment. Excuse me. The flip side is when you go to a lot of the public now, if you say human mission to the moon, human mission to Mars, there's a resonance, there's a cultural resonance, whereas with far fewer of them, when you say human mission to an asteroid or to a NEO, there's a challenge. They'll be, huh? Now, the good news is there are lots of ways to convey that it's as exciting as it is, but I think we do have more of a challenge in the initial parts of the years leading up to a mission than we do, say, with one of the other bodies in terms of public perception. But very cool mission. Can I get, let's see, let me get my little toy here. So, Planetary Society is the perspective I'm coming from primarily. We've been doing participatory exploration without knowing to call it that for 30 years, trying to excite and involve the public. And basically from that, I want to try to give you some of our lessons learned and then talk about kind of a theoretical look of what we think is important to do, and then talk about a competition that we're going to be doing directly on human missions about human missions to NEOs. This first point in the overview I'm going to talk more about in the next slide, so we'll put it off for a moment. Those who invest time and involvement, so there's the traditional push information out via the press, via TV, one way, and that's great, and that involves the most people, as we'll talk about in a moment. But we find that, as have many other groups, that when people do something, when they become involved, when they engage, even if it's something very small, they suddenly pay much more attention to the mission, they feel some type of ownership, to use the term loosely, and they're going to be more supportive. We also have become fans of competitions, as many others, and one point I'll make now is that they involve a lot more people than just the competitors. They're another opportunity to create interim milestones, for lack of a better term, that one can use for education, for public outreach. There's a lot of opportunity here for international involvement, and we're trying to work with our international partners on this endeavor. And when we hold competitions, when we take names and fly them on spacecraft, we get a lot of participation from around the world, and we've done it with other nations' missions as well. Finally, and then just repeating, these really are going to be great opportunities that will excite and involve the public. We just need to make sure we do our homework along the way. All right, next we need some type of bold graphic to make it look like I know what I'm talking about. So we've created this pyramid. The width of the pyramid is basically how many people you involve in something, and the height is how much they are involved in it. And what we find is that it's important to have all pieces of the pyramid, however you define the little inside parts. So at the broadest level, at the base of the pyramid, you're pushing information out. You're doing what's been done. You've got video of astronauts first coming to touch the NEO. And that's what's obviously going to involve the most number of people. And we'll talk about some examples of all these in a moment. Next is large numbers doing something simple, something like going to a website and putting their name in to fly on the spacecraft. Something where they have to take an action, but it's something that is only going to take them a couple minutes, isn't overwhelming, but makes them start perking their ears up even more when they hear about that robotic mission, that robotic precursor, or the human mission later on. And then you get the technical terms of medium numbers with medium level involvement. I didn't lose anyone, did I? That is where people are investing more time, smaller numbers, but getting a richer experience out of it. And then at the top of the pyramid, you have very small numbers, maybe tens of people that are really actively involved with the mission, but you are picking people who are surrogates. Just as astronauts are the true surrogates for humanity, these are surrogates for public participation and communicate out to the rest of the world. So I'm going to give just some examples of this, and my proposed numbers are really for the human mission aspect, but there would be scaled down numbers for the robotic precursors. Just because of my background, I'm giving planetary society examples because that's what I could actually answer questions on, talk competently about. That's not to imply there isn't a lot of great work being done by NASA and lots of other groups in many of these areas. So billions of people, literally billions of people, will get excited about and participate in watching what happens with the final stages of this. Millions can be engaged in kind of what was that next step up on our pyramid. So again, first example that comes to mind that we started doing many years ago, lots of people are doing now, collect names of people who want to fly their names to X, So they want to fly their names to an asteroid, want to fly their names to Mars. And for working with NASA, we flew a DVD on Mars exploration rovers that had 4 million names on it. We've done many others with hundreds of thousands. So this is something that has an amazing amount of meaning to some people. Not all 4 million, but you meet people who go, oh yes, I have the certificate on my wall. I flew to Mars. And then you ask them what they did there, and the conversation breaks down. Hundreds of thousands to millions can be involved with some type of interaction on social media, Facebook. Certainly Twitter's been very successful. It's more one way, but it is that short communication that's more practical as NASA's been using it for astronauts actually in space, getting ready to go to space to provide a greater feeling of connection. And it is two-way, but it's primarily a one-way avenue. But you have a number of social media options now, tens of thousands to millions in public participation in so-called citizen science and getting involved in ways that range from SETI at home, which had millions of people devoting their downtime on their computer to processing data, so something they could do but wasn't actively involving their brains, to projects involving crater counting, Stardust at home, looking for interstellar dust particles, then involve the eye-brain combination and really utilize people for what they're good for once you train them, the eye-brain combination. Tens of thousands can participate in simple competitions, and this I mentioned another one which we've used and others have used to great success to engage a lot of people, including students, which is naming competitions, whether it be naming rovers, Spirit and Opportunity, naming asteroids that we visit like Braille, other spacecraft, Magellan. There are a lot of opportunities going to occur here, especially since most of the asteroids that pop up have very exciting numerical names. So there'll be good opportunities there, as well as Hayabusa did with Itokawa, naming features on the surface, things like that. Thousands, tens of thousands. So, and I combine a couple of these here, is the concept of holding competitions that reach out to thousands of people, for often students, essay competitions, that type of thing, where the winners then move on to round two, and they come down to this lowest level, or second to lowest level, where they actually do something. So like we did this with Mars exploration rovers, had students involved working with NASA in the mission operations phase, who then communicated out to the world. And you could do this in any number of ways, having them remotely drive a micro rover on the surface, communicate with the astronauts, something. So you get a bunch of people paying attention, competing, a few people representing them at the end of the process. And then there's kind of this in between hundreds to thousands, and that's why I'm going to talk about a competition next that's in that category, which are more complex competitions or other involvement devices that require a lot of effort, things like mission design competitions, where you may actually get some real benefit out of it for the program, but more importantly, you get an opportunity to sell the program, to pitch it to the public, to get them involved. Speaking of which, Planetary Society is going to be doing, in the next few months, a human asteroid design competition. We did, a couple of years ago, we did the Apophis mission design competition for a robotic mission for tagging. We actually have the PI of the winning proposal is in here, Mark Schaefer. Hey. And from SpaceWorks Engineering, we have some of the judges in here that worked on that. This is along, process-wise, in a similar vein, but in terms of details, obviously move in a very different direction, which is do something simple like design a human asteroid mission. So you can all take a break, go home. No, I'm just kidding. We'll take small pieces of the mission. We're putting together now an advisory council, work with our partners, figure out what pieces would be of most interest, and put this out. We have 3 categories of entrants, ranging from the open category, of which we envision aerospace and getting involved. College students, primarily these are engineering design classes submitting entries, and these are actually in the mission design aspects, of which we'll focus on whatever the details are. We'll focus on operations, the challenging type things we've been talking about here. What do you do when you're in this strange low gravity environment? And then we'll have a high school and below essay competition, so a scale down on complexity and a scale up on numerical involvement. We have a $20,000 prize from Google. We're also working on getting some more prize money, particularly for the student aspects of it. We are working in collaboration with NASA on this. As I say, we're putting it together now in terms of the details. Goals of the competition. Well, one is to actually get a large, diverse, creative set of inputs to the process. Something more to feed to these type of things that would feed into future space agency human near-Earth asteroid missions. But also, as I mentioned before, this is a way to kind of leverage doing something where you're getting some content that hopefully will be helpful out of it, but at the same time you're using it to educate the public, to start this process of educating them of what a human mission to a near-Earth asteroid is, why it's really cool, why we'll learn things, why we're doing it, and what the different aspects of it are, from solar system science, planetary defense, to expanding human presence in the solar system. And to popularize, as part of that, the idea of a human asteroid mission. Last comments. I want to thank Jennifer Vaughn, who's also here from the Planetary Society, who helped put this this glorious presentation that you're all wowed and stunned by together. And if you liked it, she did it. If you didn't, then, well, I did. Website, email, feel free to contact me. I'd love to get inputs on what people think might be the helpful nuggets or kernels that could be looked at and worked on in this competition that would actually be useful, or at least potentially useful, to the process. Thank you very much.
Okay, here's a little rundown on the game plan for today. As soon as I'm done with this, we will adjourn to the same rooms that we were in yesterday. Again, recall your each of your groups. If you've forgotten your group, I hope not. But each of your groups are again in the same respective locations upstairs. For those of you who weren't able to attend yesterday, your name tag is both colorized, and you have the subgroup name underneath there. The elevators on both sides will take you up to the second floor. We'll have those breakout sessions. Unlike yesterday, we'll have a little bit longer today. We'll have a 2-hour period for each of those breakout groups. I will walk through, just so you have some general situational awareness, each of the questions that the groups are going to be concurrently dwelling on. Then we'll come back here. And we'll have a break period in between at the completion of that 2-hour brainstorming activity. We'll come back in here and we'll have a 15-minute out brief by each group. So it'll be 15 minutes out brief plus 15 minutes of commentary. So this is an opportunity for the audience and your peers to also ask questions, review, challenge, what have you. Some of the content that's being outbriefed. So it'll be very interactive. We'll do those in sets of 2, and that will round out the entire day. So I think it'll be a very full and satisfying, but most importantly, I think it will be a rich opportunity for us to develop some very strong objectives in these areas, which is the ultimate purpose of this objective workshop. Here's briefly what those concurrent sessions are going to focus on. Number 1, the precursors group is what do we need to know before we can send a human to a NEO in terms of characterization, knowledge gaps, and precursor investigations. Number 2 is going to be our technologies group. What technologies and or capabilities are needed for a human mission to a NEO? Then we have number 3, which is our UPSCON, and that is what are the concepts of operations for a human mission to a NEO? Then we have number 4, which is planetary defense. For the purposes of planetary defense, what do we need to know about NEOs and what capabilities are needed? Then we have synergies with Moon and Mars. Their focus is exactly that. What are the synergies with a human mission to the Moon or Mars for a human mission to a NEO? And finally, in the policy arena, what policy considerations must be addressed and what are the possible ways to engage the public? So that's a duality of both participatory exploration and our policy side. So with that, please let's adjourn here and reconvene in 5 minutes on the second floor in your rooms. And if you need to recharge on anything, please do so en route, and we'll be actively engaged for the next 2 hours.